We all love a good mystery, right? But what about one that spans decades, a story that twists and turns its way through UFO sightings, government secrets, and maybe even, just maybe, a touch of the divine?
Sounds intriguing.
It is, and today we're diving headfirst into the life of Chris Bledsoe.
Ah, Chris Bledsoe. Now, his name is familiar to anyone who's spent time, well, let's be honest, obsessed with UFO lore.
You got that right. And we're lucky enough to have his book, UFO of God, as our guide for this deep dive. Bledsoe takes us right into the heart of his experiences, asking that question that's haunted humanity for as long as we've looked up at the stars. Are we alone?
A question with no easy answers, that's for sure.
No, it definitely isn't. But to even begin to understand the man who finds himself at the center of these extraordinary claims, we need to rewind, go back to Bledsoe's roots.
Back to the beginning. Always a good place to start.
Exactly. And Bledsoe's childhood, let me tell you, it was about as far away from the extraordinary as you can get. Rural North Carolina, a place where life revolved around family, nature, and hard work. We're talking shores over toys, a deep connection to the land, the kind of upbringing that teaches you to rely on yourself, to fix what's broken, to face challenges head-on.
Resourcefulness ingrained from a young age. It's almost as if, and this is just a thought, but almost as if those early experiences, that blend of practicality and, dare I say it, a connection to something bigger than himself, laid the groundwork for the man Bledsoe would become.
It's like he was being prepared for a future where the unexpected would become the norm.
Exactly, because when the strange, the inexplicable entered his life, Bledsoe met it head-on.
And that's putting it mildly. But even before we get to the UFOs, the mind-bending encounters, there's this other event in Bledsoe's life, a brush with fate that makes you wonder, was it a sign of things to come?
Oh, I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
So, picture this. Bledsoe is 10 years old, out hunting with his father, when the unthinkable happens. He's accidentally shot. Over 300 lead pellets, think about that for a second, riddled his small frame.
Oh my goodness, that's horrific.
It is the kind of accident that realistically should have had a tragic ending.
And yet he survived.
He did. And that's just it, isn't it? The sheer improbability of it all.
I mean, 300 pellets, you'd expect, well, the worst.
And yet no vital organs were hit, no lasting damage. Even the doctors were baffled.
It's almost like he was given a second chance.
Exactly, and here's where it gets really interesting. Just a week before the accident, Bledsoe had this unsettling encounter with a giant owl, an experience he describes as otherworldly, as if nature itself was trying to warn him, prepare him for something.
Wow. Okay, now that sends chills down my spine. You have to wonder about the timing, the sheer improbability of it all. Did that near-death experience, that owl encounter, awaken something in Bledsoe? Did it make him more receptive to the unknown, more sensitive to, let's say, the whispers of the universe?
Whispers that, as we'll discover, would soon turn into a roar, forever changing the course of Bledsoe's life and forcing him to confront the possibility that reality, as we think we know it, is far more mysterious, far stranger than we ever imagined. Bledsoe carried on with his life, built a life for himself, but you have to wonder, did those echoes of that childhood accident, did they ever really fade? And then, in 2007, the unexplained, it re-entered his life in a way he could never have imagined.
I can only imagine what that must have been like, to have this brush with the unexplainable and then to have it come back years later.
It's like something out of a movie. A cold January night, Bledsoe's out on the Cape Fear River with his son Junior and a few friends. Just a regular night of fishing, the kind of scene that probably felt as familiar to Bledsoe as his own backyard.
The calm before, well, you know.
Exactly. And then, everything changes. 9 bright lights, they just appear in the sky above them, not moving, just hovering, almost like they're observing.
Okay, now that's just creepy. I mean, 9 lights. That's not something you can easily explain away.
No, it's not. And as if that wasn't enough, 3 of these lights, Bledsoe describes them as massive glowing orbs. They start to descend. And not just towards the earth, towards the woods across the river from them.
Oh, wow. So they're witnessing this firsthand. Did they try to get closer, get a better look?
I don't know about the friends, but Bledsoe, he blacks out.
Yeah.
He loses 4 hours of time.
What, 4 hours? Just gone like that?
Gone. When he regains consciousness, it's like someone hit fast forward on his life.
Yeah.
The world is the same, but he's missing a huge chunk of time.
That's terrifying. And what about his son, Junior? He was there too, right?
He was. Witnessed the whole thing. Imagine being a child, seeing your father just vanish into thin air. It's no wonder that Junior was traumatized by the experience.
I can't even imagine to experience something like that at such a young age.
It's a kind of thing that stays with you. And Bledsoe, he tried to rationalize it, to tell himself it was a hallucination, a trick of the mind. But deep down, he knew what he saw. He knew he wasn't crazy.
That internal struggle, it's often a bigger battle than dealing with the skeptics, isn't it?
Absolutely. So after weeks of trying to make sense of the impossible, Bledsoe decides to contact MUFON, the Mutual UFO Network.
Makes sense. I mean, who else do you turn to when you've had an experience like that? You need someone who'll at least listen, right?
You'd think so. But contacting MUFON, it's often a double-edged sword. On the one hand, you're reaching out to a community of people who might understand what you've been through. On the other hand, you're opening yourself up to a whole new level of scrutiny, of skepticism.
It's the age-old dilemma, isn't it? Do you keep your story to yourself, protect yourself from disbelief, or do you share it with the world and risk being labeled, well, let's just say it, crazy?
And for Bledsoe, that risk became a reality. The media, they caught wind of his story, and suddenly he was thrust into the spotlight. People were calling him crazy, a liar, an attention seeker. His business suffered, his relationships became strained, he became an outcast in his own community.
It's a familiar story, sadly. The social stigma that comes with these kinds of experiences is often more damaging than the experience itself.
Absolutely. But just when it seemed like things couldn't get any stranger, Bledsoe's wife, Yvonne, who had initially been skeptical of his story, she has her own encounter.
Wait, really? What happened?
It happened inside their home. Yvonne described seeing shadow people emerging from balls of light, figures that moved as if they were defying the laws of physics.
Okay, now that's just unsettling. It's one thing to have an experience out in the world, but in your own home, that hits different.
It does, and it was a turning point for Bledsoe and Yvonne. They were in this together now, bound by shared experiences that challenged everything they thought they knew about reality.
It's like whatever chose to reveal itself to Bledsoe, it wasn't content with just showing him. It wanted to make its presence known to his family, too. And that's where things get really interesting. Because desperate for answers, the Bledsoes, they agree to let MUFON investigate, hoping that this will finally shed some light on what happened to them.
So they're hoping for answers, some kind of validation.
Yeah.
Right. But the MUFON investigation, well, it didn't exactly go as planned.
Oh, how so? What happened?
Well, word got out about Bledsoe's story, and it wasn't long before the Discovery Channel came knocking.
The Discovery Channel? You mean like the TV channel?
The one and only. They wanted to feature Bledsoe's experiences on a reality TV show.
Reality TV. I can see how that could be appealing. I mean, getting your story out there, but also reality TV. They're not exactly known for their, shall we say, nuanced approach to these kinds of topics.
You hit the nail on the head. Instead of treating Bledsoe's experiences with sensitivity, with a genuine desire to understand, they focused on the most sensational aspects. Think dramatic music, shadowy recreations, the whole 9 yards.
Ah, so the classic reality TV treatment.
Yeah.
More about entertainment than truth-seeking, I imagine.
Exactly. Bledsoe felt betrayed, used. And on top of that, he started to have serious doubts about MUFON's motives. He felt like they were more interested in using his story to further their own agenda than in actually helping him.
That's a tough pill to swallow. To feel like you're being exploited not just by the media, but by the very people who claim to be on your side.
It was a crushing blow. And yet, in the midst of all this turmoil, something remarkable happens to Bledsoe.
Really? What? Tell me more.
He's walking through the woods one day, just trying to clear his head. And he encounters a woman, a luminous figure, who radiates this sense of peace, of understanding.
Okay, this is starting to sound like something out of a movie. A mysterious woman appears in the woods. Was she, like those orbs? Or did she seem more human?
Bledsoe describes her as otherworldly, but not in a frightening way. She spoke to him, told him he was chosen, that he had a message to deliver to the world.
A message? About what?
The specifics of the message, there's something Bledsoe's still trying to fully grasp. But the core of it, from what I understand, revolves around peace, compassion, a recognition of our interconnectedness.
Interesting. So after all the fear, the confusion, he has this encounter that seems to offer some kind of guidance, a sense of purpose.
It's a turning point for him. His experiences, which had once filled him with so much fear and doubt, they start to take on a new meaning. He feels a sense of mission, a drive to understand not just what happened to him, but what it means for all of us.
It's almost like he's being called to be an ambassador of sorts, bridging the gap between our world and, well, whatever those orbs represent.
And the experiences, they don't stop there. Bledsoe starts having vivid dreams, premonitions, things that come true with an accuracy that's just uncanny.
Like what? Give me an example.
He predicts earthquakes, even political upheavals, weeks, sometimes months before they happen. It's as if the veil between our world and the unknown, it's become paper thin for him.
It's like he's tapped into something, some kind of knowledge or awareness that most of us are completely oblivious to.
Oh. It's as if, and this is just a thought, but it's as if by encountering those orbs, by having his reality so profoundly challenged, Bledsoe opened up a doorway within himself, a doorway to something beyond our ordinary perception.
It's a fascinating idea. And what about Junior? How did he handle all of this?
Well, he eventually ran away from home. Imagine being a teenager, grappling with all the strangeness that seemed to surround his family. But even in his absence, the unexplained, it followed him.
What do you mean? What happened?
Junior had his own terrifying encounter with an orb. It's as if whatever revealed itself to his father, it wasn't content with just Bledsoe. He wanted to make its presence known to his son, too.
It's almost like a ripple effect, isn't it? Spreading outward from that initial encounter on the river.
Throughout all of this, Bledsoe keeps meeting others who've had similar experiences. Scientists, researchers, even a rock star.
A rock star. Now that's a story I want to hear. But seriously, it's amazing how these kinds of experiences, as strange and as isolating as they can be, they have a way of connecting people from all walks of life.
It's like they create a kind of unspoken bond, a shared understanding that transcends the boundaries of our everyday world. And here's a detail that always gets me. The orbs, the ones that started it all, they seem to follow Bledsoe. Even when he moves, they're there.
They follow him. You mean they're not attached to a specific place, but to him?
That's what it seems like.
Yeah.
And the book, it ends with Bledsoe at the Kennedy Space Center. Surrounded by the symbols of humanity's quest to explore the cosmos, he feels this overwhelming sense of connection, a feeling that his experiences, all those strange encounters, they've been leading him to this point.
Wow. It's a powerful image. It makes you wonder, what does it all mean? Are these just strange events, or are they something more? Are they glimpses into a reality that extends far beyond our current understanding?
And that's the question Bledsoe leaves us with. He doesn't claim to have all the answers. He just asks us to consider the possibility that we're part of something much bigger, much more mysterious than we could ever imagine.
And that's the beauty of it all, isn't it? The mystery, the wonder, the possibility that there's so much more out there just waiting to be discovered. And sometimes all it takes is one man's extraordinary journey to open our minds to those possibilities.
Exactly. And who knows, maybe, just maybe, Bledsoe's story is just the beginning of a much larger conversation. A conversation that challenges us to expand our definition of reality and embrace the unknown.